Hey, what's up everybody? I hope everyone is doing well. In today's video, I'm going to go over a couple of devices I ordered from HRO about a week ago and got in the mail a few days later. And these two devices can be used in both the ham shack and in the mobile setup. I'm going to go over what each of these does, go over a couple of their use cases, and then demonstrate how the two work together, and explain why I'm going to be using them in my setup in my truck. For those of you that saw the video I did a couple months ago, I had done an overview of the mobile radio setup in my truck. I have an FTM 300, a Connect Systems CS800D. I also have wiring for a President Lincoln 2 Plus that can be used up 10 meters, 11 meters. So one of the things I mentioned, I got an FTM 500 here that I'm going to put in the truck. I'm going to swap out my FTM 300 with this. And I'm going to pull the 300 into the shack here to use as dual band bass. The 500's got just, a couple of features that I really like about it compared to the 300. I mean, don't get me wrong, the 300 is a great radio, but as far as for APRS and the touchscreen and some other things that Yaesu has improved on this, I think it'd be better in the truck than my 300. So, the first thing we're going to go over today is going to be the PWRgate. And it's made by West Mountain Radio. So this is a 12-volt backup power system with an OR gate. It's essentially an uninterrupted power supply. So in the box here, we've got the PWRgate. It's all metal construction. It's pretty sturdy. I'm sure it looks familiar to a lot of you. A lot of DC power panels and distribution panels that are made look similar to this. There's a lot going on with this one. Obviously, you got power poles for a solar panel. You have a power supply, an out, a battery. You got a suspend button here to control charging, and then you have 3 LED status lights. There's also a cap here, and below that there's a micro USB port, which allows you to connect the computer to this, and you can go in and set different parameters for the charging functions in this device. Inside the box here, so you got the USB cable. It's a USB-A to micro USB. You have a quick reference guide, which basically tells you what the different light colors and flashing patterns of the LED lights on the device mean. For instance, for the battery LED, if it's green solid, it means that it's powering from the battery. Blue flashing indicates that the battery is charging. For the solar, green solid means that voltage is good and used for charging, and power supply, green is power good and use. This also includes a manual. Gives you an introduction to the device. Talks about the different batteries that can be used with the device. It's a gel, sealed lead acid, AGM, lithium, including lithium iron phosphate. Talks about the installation and setup. It gives an illustration of one of the use cases for it. Talks about connecting the battery, again, the different battery types. Goes over the internal jumpers in the device. So with the device, it comes defaulted to a lead acid battery and 5 amp charging current. So if you need to change that based on the battery that you're going to be using with it, you need to go in to the device and change those jumpers, which I'm going to demonstrate on the video. The other thing too is, like I said, you can hook up a computer via USB to it, and you can change those parameters as well, and I'm going to demonstrate that with the software also today. Then goes into what different presses of that button on front does, whether it's a short press, holding it in 5 seconds or 10 seconds, that all does different things. Again, it goes over the quick reference of what the different light colors and patterns mean on it. This talks about the USB port, has a web address to download the software for free from West Mountain Radio. And then there's a table here that goes over the USB settable parameters, which I'm going to demonstrate today also on the computer. Then it just goes on to give you an example of the USB monitoring. If you have a computer hooked up while the device is running, you can monitor all the data from the device. It tells you the charging status, battery and power supply voltages, and all that. So also it has it includes 4 power pole retention clips and also 4 adhesive pads to use on it. I guess if you're not going to permanently mount it using number 8 screws, you can put these pads on there if you're going to set it on the table or whatever. So I will tell you, the cool thing about this device is it supplies DC power when it's hooked to a power supply. And the cool thing about this is it has an integrated battery charger on it. And when I demonstrate it, I'll go into what I think makes this such a huge benefit to have in your setup. But another cool thing about this, you can hook a solar panel directly to this and use it for charging. So, which is really cool. So that is that device. So then we'll move on to the Paradan Radio PowerStrip 4 Plus. And this has 4 power pole outlets on it, as well as a digital volt and amp meter. So in the box, it's got just a brief manual. Talks about the installation, power poles, wiring, locking clips, and specs of it. So the device itself is built of similar construction, similar to the PWRgate. This is not obviously made by the same company. But this has an in, then 4 sets of power poles for the outlets for 4 different devices. You have a 40 amp fuse, then you have the LED display for volts and amps, and it says 5 to 30 DC volts. So obviously this can run 4 devices up to a total of 40 amps. And again, just like the PWRgate, this is, you know, solid construction. And also in the box with this, so you get a bag of power poles and terminal connectors for it as well, which is a plus. So I'll keep this out. Alright, so I'm going to get all this hooked up, and then we'll see what it does, and I'll go into a little more about what these do. So starting with my power supply, I got my MFJ power supply here. I'm going to plug into the power supply power poles on the PWRgate. I have a 12 volt, 12 amp hour lithium iron phosphate battery, which I've got hooked up with terminal connectors to power poles. I'm going to hook into the device. And I also have a Yaesu FT7900 that I'm going to use for this demonstration as well. So I've got the Paradan power strip here, so I'm going to plug my radio into the first outlet there. I've got my jumper from here, which is going to go into the out power poles of the PWRgate, and that is going to go to the end of the Paradan power strip to feed that with power. And then I have my battery power poles, which are going to connect to the battery power poles on the PWRgate. So as you can see right now, my power supply is off, the battery is hooked up. So the power strip is reading 13.2 volts, 0.6 amps. My radio kicked on as soon as I gave it power, and the PWRgate is showing a green solid for the battery LED, which means that it is operating off of battery. The thing you'll notice is that once I kick the MFJ power supply on and it is set at 13.8 volts, the PWRgate detected the power from the power supply, so the power supply LED light is now solid green, meaning that it's getting power from the power supply. The battery LED switched to a blue flashing, which indicates that it is charging the battery. And you can see on the power strip here, the voltage is now reading at 13.7 volts, and we got a 0.6 amp draw, which is what this radio is drawing on receive at the moment. So, first demonstration I'm going to show you all. So I've got the radio, it is powered on. I'm going to kill the power to the PWRgate from the power supply. Alright, so that power is drawing down. Now, as you can see on the PWRgate, that power supply light is now off, indicating that it's not getting power from the power supply. The battery LED is now solid green to indicate that it is operating off the battery. If you notice, the radio is still powered on, once the power to the power supply shut off, it instantaneously and seamlessly switched to battery, allowing you to operate the radio uninterrupted. So I'm going to kick the power supply back on. Now once it came back on, you can see that now the volts are at 13.7. Amp draw is still the same at 0.6 for the radio being in receive mode. Power supply light on the power gate is solid green, and the battery is back to charging now from the power gate because it is getting power from the power supply. Now I'll tell you what makes this so valuable, what I really like about it and what drew me to it and why I want to put it in my truck, is you have the ability to configure inside the device basically at what voltage level you want the power gate to charge the backup battery that you have connected to it, and what voltage that you want the power gate to stop charging. So I'll give you an example. If you have this in the vehicle for your mobile setup and the vehicle is running, okay, obviously your charging system in the vehicle is running anywhere from 13.8 to, let's just say, 14.3 volts, right? So you're in your vehicle, you're using your radio, you get somewhere and you turn your ignition off, right? You turn the car off. The voltage then drops to whatever your resting voltage of your vehicle's battery is at. Okay, typically, let's just say 12.5 volts. Well, if there's no shut off for the power gate, you shut your vehicle off, obviously it's going to continue charging your backup battery off of your vehicle's battery, which would ultimately deplete it. Well, the circuitry inside the power gate allows you to set the voltage to tell it when to turn off so that it stops charging, but it will still power your radios with your vehicle off. So once you turn your car off, and say you set this to 12.4 volts or 12.5, whatever your resting voltage is for your vehicle's battery, when you shut your vehicle off, the power gate is going to detect that the voltage dropped beyond that threshold that you set, and it's going to turn the charging off on the device so that it doesn't kill your vehicle's battery charging your backup battery. So I'm going to demonstrate that right now. And if you want to watch the voltage, I got a lot of wires going on here. I'm going to remove this so you all can see the voltage on the power strip's voltmeter or display. I'm going to slowly turn the voltage down on my MFJ power supply, which is set to 13.8 at the moment. So I'm going to slowly start turning that down. And you'll notice on the LED display that it's starting to drop now. We're at 13.2. Okay. So now I've dropped the voltage on the power supply, and let's see, we are about at 12 volts on the power supply. You'll notice on the power gate, the power supply light is still solid green, indicating that it is detecting power from the power supply. However, that battery light is now flashing green, which means that it has ceased charging the backup battery. And you notice the voltage, even though the voltage from the vehicle battery is probably at 12.5 right now, the voltage is 13.2 because it's getting the juice from the battery here. So this device, you know, it's $189.95 is what I paid for it. I think it's well worth it for what it offers. You know, not only it's supplying DC power via power supply to, you know, a power strip like this, but it has an integrated charger, and it allows for the connection of a solar panel directly to it to use for charging and supplying power as well. So those two things pretty much sold me on it. I said, you know what, I'm getting that for my vehicle. And then going on to the power strip, okay, so you have 40 amp fused power strip with 4 outlets, so you have 4 radios there you can connect to it, okay? As long as I don't total above 40 amps, and the likelihood that you're going to use more than one radio simultaneously that's going to draw that is pretty unlikely. So again, it will allow you to connect either 4 radios or a couple radios and a couple of other devices to it. And the last thing I'm going to do, I'm going to set up my laptop and plug it into the USB port on the power gate. I'm going to show what the software looks like that controls this, and also some of the parameters that can be set. So I'm going to grab that, set that up, and I'll be right back. Alright, so I now have my laptop hooked up to the power gate through the USB cable. You're going to want to download the WMR device diagnostic utility off of Westmount Radio's website. It's a free download, so once you install that on your computer, you're going to want to select the first option in the program, which is WMR Epic Power Gate. So as soon as you go into that, you'll notice that the window pops up and it's reading data from the PWRgate now. So it's showing the charging status of your backup battery, your power supply voltage, the battery voltage, etc. From this screen, you just press S, and it takes you into the settings menu. So the first question it's going to ask you is the type of battery that you have. Okay, so for my case here, I'm going to select 4 for the lithium iron phosphate. Then reset to the volt values, say no. Max charge voltage in volts. Okay, this is the max voltage that you want the battery to charge at. Alright, so for my case, I'm just going to select 14.1 for the demonstration. Keep in mind, you got to refer to the documentation that came with your battery, or contact the manufacturer to get the information from them. Don't use the numbers that I'm inputting in here, because if you have a different battery type or the values are different, you potentially damage your battery. So just keep that in mind. I'm just demonstrating this to show you what options you have. So max charge current in amps, I'll select 6. Minimum charge current, I'll go with 2.4. The recharge volts in volts. So this is basically the voltage that your backup battery drops down to. You select what voltage you want the PWRgate to begin charging again. So for example, this battery here, say it's right now it's fully charged and it's showing, just say 13.1 volts. But you want the PWRgate to kick back on and start charging again if, say, it drops to 11.9 or 12 volts. That's what this is here. So just for this demonstration, I'll put 12.1. Then I want to kick back on charging. Max charge minutes. This is the max time that you want the charger to charge continuously for. Okay, now obviously with the battery management system within the battery and the PWRgate, it's going to be able to detect whether the battery's taking a charge and its status of whether it's done charging or not. This setting is, say that you have a fault in the battery that you're unaware of, and the PWRgate's been running for, let's just say, 8 hours, but your battery should have been charged in 2. This is the max time that you want the charger continuous charging for before it stops. Okay, so this is just a protection basically in case there's a fault with your battery. Okay, so I'll select 600 just for this. Minimum charge idle. This is how long the PWRgate's idle for with the charger. I'll just say 30 minutes. Minimum supply voltage for charging. Okay, so this is what I was talking about before about the voltage that the PWRgate detects to where it shuts off the charging. So in the case of a vehicle, if your vehicle when it's running is at 14 volts and when you shut it off it's at 12.5, well, in that case then you would set the PWRgate's minimum supply voltage to 12.5, or say 12.4 or 12.6, whatever it is for your particular vehicle. And once it detects that voltage, it knows that, okay, I'm going to shut off charging because now the vehicle's not running. Okay, so for this, for my particular case, for my vehicle, I'm going to select 12.5. Right, battery save mode, no. And it's set. You see, once you get the settings where you want them, it goes back into monitor mode, and now it's just reading data from the PWRgate. The last thing I'm going to show now that we've gone into the PWRgate with the computer and customized some of the settings is how that charge shut-off voltage works in the unit. So I'm going to kick the power supply back on. It is set to 13.8 volts. If you remember in the software, I set the PWRgate to cut off charging once it detects the voltage down to 12.5. Okay, so I'm slowly going to adjust the voltage down, dropping it. We're at just about 12.5 here. Right, so now if you notice, the PWRgate, the light is still green because it's still getting power from the power supply. However, it's cut off charging because the voltage is now at or below that 12.5 charger cutoff. And again, that will protect your vehicle's battery from depleting due to charging this backup battery. So a couple of use cases. Obviously I kind of went in more so to the mobile setup. The other thing that you can do as well is put a switch in line between your vehicle's battery and the PWRgate, just so that if you wanted to completely cut off power from your vehicle's battery and just run off this battery for run your radios for extended periods of time, whether that's POD or whatever, that's an option for you. The other thing too is in a setup in the shack. So you have a power DC distribution panel for several radios, HF, 2-meter, 70 centimeter, or whatever. That power gate hooked to a backup battery. If your power were to go out at your house, it will automatically switch to the battery instantaneously, seamlessly. So if you're in the middle of operating your radios and the power goes out, you're still good to go with this. The other thing too, those of you that use current Yaesu mobile radios in the vehicles know that they're very sensitive to voltage fluctuations. In my case, for instance, my truck has a push to start, which obviously draws a lot more power than the traditional ignition. So the problem I have with my TIP 300 right now is if I leave my radio on and I'm running a short errand where I leave my radio on in the truck, I come back in to start the truck, the radio shuts off. Okay, so this would alleviate that. The other option too that you have is, say you go camping or you're hunting, you want to use your Yaesu mobile on crossband repeat while you're out a distance from the vehicle with your HTs. This would switch to your backup battery. Once you shut that vehicle off, you could shut the power off from the vehicle battery to the power gate and just completely run off of this battery without having to worry about depleting your vehicle's battery. And there's probably a lot of other uses for it as well. Those are just the ones I can think of off the top of my head. So in closing, just a couple of things to remember with this is, obviously, as far as the settings go for the power gate, if you just want to use it just basic settings, you can use it right out of the box by just setting those jumpers to what you need for your battery and not having to go through the computer and the USB cable. That's obviously gives you a lot more options for customizing things, so I would recommend that, but it's not necessary. The other thing too is, again, just make sure that, depending on what battery you have, that you set those parameters correctly to not damage your battery. The other thing too to realize is that, say for instance you've got an external charger set up on your vehicle's battery because you need to charge your vehicle battery, obviously make sure that you disable charging on the power gate, because obviously that vehicle charger is going to increase the voltage, which may be above the threshold that you set for this charger to go off. So if you have a charger connected to your vehicle's battery, that's obviously going to raise the voltage that the power gate is detecting, and you want that to shut off the charging on it so you're not drawing into your backup battery. So you can suspend that. One press of the suspend button will suspend charging for 30 minutes. If you hold in for 5 seconds, I believe it will suspend indefinitely until you reset it. So hopefully this was informative for you all, especially those that weren't familiar with the power gate. I came across it one day just looking on West Mountain Radio's website. I was actually looking at their rig runners when I came across this, and once I read the description, I knew it was something that I wanted in my vehicle. One, to alleviate the issue that I had with my Yaesu mobile, to where it shuts off every time I start the truck, and then just its ability to connect a solar panel directly to it and the integrated charger in it. I knew that's something I wanted, to be able to use a backup battery in the vehicle, and if I wanted to do PODA or whatever, I now have not only something that manages power that can take a solar panel, but it can charge a lithium iron phosphate battery as well, while operating the vehicle for PODA and other uses like that. If you have some experience with these, or if you've used them for a while and maybe there's something you're using it for that I didn't go over or that may be helpful to others, feel free to comment below. I'm probably going to do a video here in a few days once I get all this installed in the truck along with the FTM 500, and I'll probably do a video showing how it works in the vehicle as well. But I think that's about it for this one. Thank you for watching. If it was helpful, please hit that like and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one. 73.